Hello and welcome to the Amazing Studios Production Podcast. My name is Peter Scheibner.
And I'm Cliff Baumgartner.
Cliff, it has been a long night.
Yes.
And now it's a very early morning, but we are
Yes.
here for a very special edition of the Production Podcast. What are we doing today?
I am so excited. We are at long last talking about The Martian.
Yes, and we're going to do a review and try to have this up today so that people can get our take on The Martian that quickly.
Yes, we were lucky enough to make one of the early screenings last night, and we're up early and going to talk about it. And don't worry, if you haven't seen the movie yet, the first half of this episode is going to be spoiler-free. We will tell you about halfway through. We will wave our hands and clap them, and so that no matter where you're watching, you can tell that spoilers are coming up. And then we will delve into spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, feel free to keep watching, keep listening if you would like, and we will warn you before we start ruining things.
All right, some background first. Just so everybody knows, Cliff has read the book. He read it about a year ago, before he was aware of the movie in production.
Probably my favorite book of last year.
Yep. I have not read the book.
It was a blast.
So for me, The Martian is completely fresh. So we're going to offer both perspectives.
Yeah.
And we're going to kind of talk about it from every level then.
Yeah.
In story, in structure, in pacing, in look, in style. And then obviously Ridley Scott. We got to talk about that.
Right. And it's kind of full circle because I think the first trailer came out not long after I came here. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was like one of the first trailers that, because we're nerds, when a new trailer comes out, we all run into the next room and pull it up on the big screen. And I think that was one of the first ones we did that with. Yeah. And we've all been watching and kind of following along ever since through their amazing pre-marketing campaign. Mm-hmm. They have some of the best marketing that I've seen for a movie in a long time. Yeah. They did a really, really amazing job. So it got everybody amped and ready to go last night.
Yep. And we should probably talk about that later on in the podcast, talk about the social aspects of the film and what they did in the film to kind of weave some of that in. All right, let's start with your first take.
I gotta say, it nailed my expectations. I had high expectations for this movie because I knew how good the source material was. I knew how good everyone was going in. I loved it. I honestly, it was exciting. It was hilarious. It had the spirit of the book of being funny and being lighthearted while dealing with very serious things and very harsh realities and the way they worked in all of the scientific aspects that were just really fantastic. It felt like great kind of old school sci-fi. And I had an absolute blast. I loved it. What about you? Yeah,
I absolutely loved it as well. For me, it's hard for me watching films and being able to pull myself out and really enjoy the film.
Right.
It's hard for me to detach myself from the visuals and from the pacing and the story and the direction and all of that. But there were several points last night. In fact, most of the film, I was just sitting on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
Wondering what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
It was a masterful job of building the suspense. In parallel, though, building your care for the character. Mm-hmm. And I think what surprised me the most was how funny it was.
Oh, yeah. And that's something they brought directly from the book, and I was really glad they didn't lose that. The book is hilarious, and that's one of the strongest. I mean, that is the kind of the defining feature of Mark Watney's character, is that he has this gallows sense of humor that he uses to keep himself sane, essentially, during this whole ordeal. And Matt Damon nailed it. I thought he really embodied that character without making it cliche, without making it feel weird, because it could be a character that would be easy to screw up if not done carefully and done by an actor of any less the caliber of someone like Matt Damon. And I thought they hit that note perfectly.
Well, that's actually a good place to start. Let's start on performances.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you've got to start with Matt Damon.
Yeah. Well, first let's say this is an actor's movie. Mm-hmm. This movie is chock-a-block full of great actors giving great performances.
Yeah, I mean you've got obviously Matt Damon. You've got Jessica Chastain. You've got Kristen Wiig, Jeff Daniels, Sean Bean.
And what a diverse cast that is to have, people like Matt Damon and Jeff Daniels and Sean Bean in the same film as Kristen Wiig. Mm-hmm. That's a very...
And Michael Pena.
Right. And it's a very diverse cast, which was great to see. And that was one thing I felt that they represented so well in the film was the true to life diversity of a place like NASA. Mm-hmm. And I don't just mean that ethnically. It's also just you have... the film kind of cuts back and forth between NASA in Houston and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And, NASA's very orderly, everyone is very professional, everyone's wearing suits, cut to JPL, and it feels like old school Apple is what I kept thinking of. Like Steve and Woz in the garage is kind of how all these guys felt. They played up that well, and they played up these characters very well, and they cast people who portrayed it perfectly, where you had a diverse cast. It didn't feel like a one-note sci-fi movie. It didn't feel like, oh, this is a serious sci-fi movie, or, oh, this is a comedy. They really cast to play the whole spectrum.
Yep. And they did a good job setting up Matt Damon's character. I'm going to get a little bit more into kind of the vehicle, but one of the main concerns when you have a film that has a person, a castaway,
right,
who's alone,
castaway on Mars, all it says,
who's alone in a location for the majority of the movie,
right.
How are you going to make that interesting to an audience?
Right.
We'll get into a little bit how they did that in a bit, but the way that they did it, Matt Damon absolutely pulled it off.
Oh yeah, and I was thinking about it last night after watching, which is what a physical role this was for Matt Damon. A lot of this movie is not acting necessarily in the way that we would normally think of it. It's not doing a large dialogue scene with multiple characters. It's him by himself having to sell the pain and the frustration and the kind of monotony of maintaining life on another planet. And he did that very well.
Yeah,
it seems like a simple thing of, oh, it's just a guy by himself, but it takes a really powerful actor to be able to pull that off and hold your attention for 2.5 hours.
Yep. I want to talk about Kate Mara.
Yes.
Because this has been the year of Kate Mara.
It's been a couple of years of Kate Mara now.
Yeah. I feel like every movie I see coming out in theaters, she's in it.
For good reason. I mean, I know you still haven't seen House of Cards, but she's on the first 2 seasons of House of Cards, and she's magnificent.
Really, first season and 1 episode.
Well, don't get into spoilers. And most people probably know by now, but we're gonna say first 2 seasons because we don't want to ruin anything. But yeah, she's fantastic, and she is popping up in everything over the last year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, right now when we were at the theater, there were 3 films in that she was in. There was Fantastic Four, which I don't know how, but it was still at this theater. There was Captive, and then obviously The Martian.
Yeah,
and I don't remember a time since Jude Law, few years back, when somebody was in that many movies at the exact same time.
And honestly, I also thought about this as kind of a cool year for Michael Pena. Been in quite a few things, Ant-Man and The Martian probably being the biggest. But I also see him almost daily on a television commercial. His face is all over the place, and I'm fine with that because he is hilarious.
Yeah, and they're doing a good job.
Great actor.
Yep, and he actually did a great job. I mean, speaking of Michael Pena, he did a great job in this film at bringing some of that comedy, some of those heavier moments.
Right.
There are some heavy moments in this, and he was able to carry the gravity, but also give you a little bit of a breath.
Well, it's interesting. He kind of plays the role of, Mark is he's the class clown of sorts among the crew, and then when Mark is gone and the crew is still having to carry on, it's almost like Michael Pena's character Martinez fills that role. He kind of comes back in and gives everybody a reason to laugh once Mark is gone.
Yep.
And it was cool how they kind of bridged that later in the film, which we can get into later. But it's really fantastic.
You know who really impressed me, and it's such a transformation for an actor from where he began to where he is now, but Jeff Daniels.
Absolutely.
Played this character that at first you're not sure if you should mistrust him.
Right.
Or if he's just that in control, but by the end of the film, his character had developed so much, and you knew why he was who he was.
Oh yeah, fantastic ideological antagonist. He's not a bad guy. Nothing that he does or wants is bad, but he is protecting a set of ideals that is counter to what the audience wants, and that is a simple but incredibly effective technique.
Yeah.
To make you hate this guy in a way while respecting him. And Jeff Daniels, it reminded me a lot of his performance from was it Newsroom? It reminds me quite a bit of that. It just his presence and his power.
Yeah.
And he was fantastic.
Yeah.
And also seeing Jeff Daniels square off with Sean Bean. 2 high caliber actors. 2 actors mainly associated, I would say, with character work, really, being character actors. But watching them square off against one another, and seeing Sean Bean be on kind of a different side of things, as he's the kind of grizzled, older scientist who's trying to protect the interests of his crew, and he really plays a good guy. He kind of plays the white knight going up against Jeff Daniels, and man, their scenes together. There's a scene that's actually in the trailer, so this isn't spoiling anything, but there's a scene in the trailer when they're talking and Jeff Daniels says, well, this is bigger than one man, and Sean Bean says it's actually not. That scene in the film was wonderful. Just watching those guys fence, basically back and forth.
It was a mental, verbal jousting.
It was great.
Yeah.
Very, very glad to see the caliber of cast. And also, I have to mention Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Oh, yeah.
Who really carries the movie in a big way. He kind of, at least for the Earth side, he is the momentum of the film. His character, Vincent Kapoor, who was a really fun character in the book. In the film, he is the one pushing all the action forward. He's the one fighting for Mark every step of the way. And I thought he did a fantastic job.
Well, and I think if I was going to say the single person who had not necessarily the biggest role, but probably the strongest, most memorable performance, it's got to be Donald Glover.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. He absolutely shined in this film. He plays this almost kind of crazed genius scientist over at LabCorp or at the propulsion
JPL.
Yeah, and just nailed it.
He's and from what I understand, a lot of that was not necessarily improv, but some of it, there are some mistakes. We'll say that are left in the film that he rolled with in his performance that are phenomenal. He and the interesting thing is he's really not introduced until halfway through the second act, and he just kind of comes out of nowhere, and then but immediately within being on screen in 15 seconds, you know who his character is, you know you love this guy, and you know that he means something big.
Yep.
And he was great.
Yeah,
loved that guy. And also, one other, and thankfully we have IMDb pulled up because I did not know her name before this movie, but Mackenzie Davis played Mindy. That is a character that in the book.
What else has she been in?
Yeah, that's a good question. In the book, that character is kind of cliche, not in a really terrible way, but she kind of plays the weird, nerdy scientist who finds out information and is trying to help but is awkward and doesn't understand. It was kind of a weird character, and I was afraid that originally I thought that was the Kristen Wiig role. When I saw the first trailer, I thought that's who she was playing, and I thought, that could be overplayed. Mackenzie Davis nailed it. She played the weird, she played the awkward, but she played very lovable, very sincere, very smart in an understated kind of way, where you can tell every time she speaks, you can tell, wow, she's going to be the one to help bring this home. You put a lot of trust in, you have a lot of trust in her character in the movie, and she carried that beautifully. Yeah. Can't wait to see what she does from here, because that was awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, an entire cast that did a fantastic job. Let's talk a little about Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Going back to space. It's been a little while since we've seen an original, not a sequel to something.
Right.
Ridley Scott space film.
And there's more to come.
And yes, guys, he signed on for what, like 4 more Prometheus
3
films?
or 4, yeah.
Yeah. Which, okay, that's another topic for another time, but why?
I did see an interview with him where he said that after he was not happy with what happened to the Alien franchise, and so he basically said, well, if anybody's doing it, it's going to be me. And so he's kind of taking on that mantle of Prometheus.
Okay.
But
at any rate,
we'll see where it goes. People hated the first movie. I gotta say, while we're on a sci-fi kick, I actually really liked Prometheus. A lot of people hated that film. I liked it, so I'm with him if he wants to do more.
Yeah.
But it was really cool and exciting to see him come back to. I mean, to see him play in his realm in sci-fi.
Well, and he's coming off of Exodus, Gods and Kings.
Right. Something very different for him.
Right. So this is very.
Well, I guess it's not that different.
No, it's not different for him.
He's the epic guy, but different in terms of what you would expect from this director. I would not think that the director of The Martian did something like Exodus, or especially did Gladiator. I mean, he's such a diverse director. Actually, it's something you and I were talking about, I think, over lunch yesterday, that who would think that one man would direct Alien and Blade Runner, Black Hawk Down, Gladiator,
Robin Hood,
and Thelma and Louise.
Yeah.
He has such a crazy filmography, such a diverse director, and every time he does it, he's just great. Everything he's one of those guys who's had his ups and downs. I would consider Robin Hood to be a bit of a down, but overall, his stuff just has a great quality, and it can be hard to put your finger on what makes a film a Ridley Scott film, but I think that's kind of cool. He's almost a chameleon director. He slips in to any situation and just really brings out a quality film out of it. I feel like he's a kind of a director's director in that sense.
You know, the one thing that I think does make a Ridley Scott film is his wide aerials. He loves his wide aerials.
He does love that.
Almost every scene had one.
Yeah.
Especially on Mars.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wide aerials.
Which, from what I understand, were shot in Jordan, where they have a kind of a
I was
red
wondering.
dirt
I was going to
desert.
ask if you knew where they shot.
Yeah, they have kind of a redder desert there, so they were able to. I mean, I'm sure they still did a lot of work in post, but they were able to shoot a lot of those aerials and a lot of the exteriors down over there, and I thought it looked great. I mean, it was very much when the film started, I instantly felt grounded to where we were, even though we were on a completely different planet.
Right. It felt familiar.
Right. It didn't
and real.
Yeah, it didn't feel like fantasy sci-fi. It really felt like, we're here now.
Right. It wasn't like a Star Trek.
Right.
Where this is a fantastic new planet.
Right. It felt very grounded.
Yep.
Which was great, and that's not easy to do. And that's the kind of thing where you see the experience of a director like Ridley Scott, who kind of, in a lot of ways helped define the field of sci-fi in film. You see his skill coming through in subtle things like that, and the way he knows to bring you home in that sense.
I know this is a minor thing, and I know that probably nobody else cares, but he had the best directed by credit at the end I think I've ever seen.
What was it?
When it came, because they were showing each of the characters at the end with their names. When it got to a film directed by Ridley Scott, it was that wide shot of the Earth, the curvature of the Earth.
That's pretty sweet.
As his name rose up, oh my word, it was like, wow, that.
Yeah.
A film by Ridley Scott, a film by Peter Schreiber, it should look like that every time.
Yeah, that is literally planetary narcissism. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And from a technical perspective, while we're talking about Ridley Scott and his whole group, I mean, it's a beautifully crafted film. I actually found myself, I was thinking this morning in the shower, I was kind of getting mentally prepared for talking about the film, and I realized I don't necessarily remember a lot of the cinematography or effects or editing because I got so lost in it. In a great way. It's great for me, like you were saying earlier, when I'm not noticing every detail. I actually had to sit there and recall some of the elements of it because it felt so natural. It brought me into this world, and nothing stood out in a negative way. Everything felt very coherent. But gorgeously shot.
Yeah. Well, it was shot by Terry Swelsky, who's done almost all of Ridley Scott's work. The two of them have a great working relationship.
And a lot of pirates.
And a lot of pirates, yeah. He's done some Disney stuff. He shoots big films.
Yeah.
And this is a big film, and it feels like a big film. It's interesting. I think as we look back in context, this opened the same weekend as The Walk. Which
is not doing well.
As of this recording, it's Friday. It came out Wednesday, so we'll see what reviews give it, and what kind of a boost it gets from that. But you look at the two films, and The Martian looks like the big blockbuster.
Yeah.
And The Walk feels like it just couldn't quite break that threshold.
In The Martian, what's interesting from a cinematography perspective is how big the film feels and how much it feels like a Ridley Scott epic, because that's what he does a lot of the time. Just some of his films are epics. How much it feels like an epic while actually being fairly small in terms of the mechanics of the film. I read last night where they only built 20 sets for the movie. I mean, a lot of it is in the same offices and rooms and in the hab on Mars, and it's fairly small in the way it actually plays out, but it feels huge.
Yeah, I mean, you think about your locations. You have the hab, you have the exteriors around the hab, you have NASA, so maybe 4 locations within NASA.
Yeah.
You have the propulsion.
Yep.
Place, and you have a place in China. Those are your big locations.
And the rover.
The
rover is actually a fairly big setting for the end of the film.
Yeah.
And we got to talk about briefly the Hermes. I'm a nerd. I love spaceships in movies. The Hermes is one of the coolest spaceships I've ever seen.
So that's not a thing that is, right?
No, but it is. in theory possible in the next. I mean, that's one of the things about this film and about the original book is NASA has kind of said nothing in this is completely ridiculous.
Yeah, because that idea of how they created, and honestly, they never addressed it. The artificial gravity.
That was great. I was from the book. That's of course in the book. And when I started thinking about the movie, I was like, how do you portray that? How do you show gravity coming back, and how do you address it? They never address it. It just starts happening.
But I get it.
But you get it. It's great.
Right. Because at first, they don't show it the first time you see it. So
Right.
they're in there, and they're in a place that's completely weightless, and then all of a sudden they're in a place where there's gravity.
Right.
And you're like, okay, how is this working? And then maybe 15 minutes later in the film, you see the mechanism, and we're not going to give it away. We'll wait till the spoilers. Actually, now might be a good time. Are we there yet?
Let's address this one, and then we'll break into spoilers.
Okay. So the mechanism that they use to create the gravity all of a sudden makes sense. You see it, you connect it back, and it's like, wow, oh, that actually makes a whole lot of sense.
And to be fair, it's not much of a spoiler that spin is the cause of the
if you watch the trailers, if you watch the trailers, and you'll see the Hermes, it's the big. It almost looks like an International Space Station. Yeah. There's two big rings,
Right.
and they're constantly spinning. Well, the concept is that they're creating basically the amount of force in their spin
Right.
that pulls you to the outside, the same equal to what you'd feel in Earth's gravitational pull.
Right, and that's exactly how it was described in the book. And I was that was the thing that was hard for me to even visualize in the book, because that is such a doozy of a concept, and I thought it was geniusly done. From everything from the animation, the 3D models and things of the spaceships, the visual effects, to the practical sets and how they built it to work with that. It was just that's some great sci-fi filmmaking, and that's really one of the more sci-fi aspects of the movie. That's where I kind of felt that like it was a sci-fi.
Yep.
So shall we break into spoilers?
Yes. All right.
Spoilers.
So if you have not seen this film and you don't want us to spoil it for you, you need to stop watching right now. And then I would suggest instantly go to Fandango.
Yep.
Buy your ticket.
Yep.
And get to the theaters now.
Go see it.
Ready, set, go.
And it is for full disclosure sake, we did not see it in 3D.
No, we did not.
I don't care about 3D, so
Yeah.
we saw straight up standard, which is what I recommend. I'm very interested to hear how the 3D is, because I can see there are some sequences in the movie where I can see 3D actually being pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But in general, I just don't care.
Yeah, no. Okay, so now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's talk some spoilers.
Yes.
Let's talk the opening scene.
Yeah.
They drop right into it.
They do, and that was interesting because the book starts after he's been stranded and goes back. So you really are right in the middle of it. But yeah, opening scene of the movie, talking, introduce the characters, bam, storm hits, Mark is dead. I mean, first 10 minutes.
Right. And I liked, okay, so we talked about the vehicle that they used to communicate, to keep it interesting on Mars, and I'm going to go back to that now. What they did was they had Mark basically talking to these cameras,
right,
as if he's trying to basically leave a catalog of his experiences on Mars.
Right. They adapted the written journal from the book into video journals.
Right. And so there's GoPros all over the hob. And
literally GoPros.
Yep, and they use the GoPro footage in the film. And he goes around, and as he's doing things, he's literally sharing the experiences of what he's doing. So,
right.
If he's planting his garden, which is, I mean, incredible how they set that up. But when he's doing that, he's talking to it about, hey, so this is how I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing, and I'm basically the greatest botanist on this planet.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and then they used that. I thought it was great. The first few times they used that kind of device, you see him talking to a camera, and then by the end of the film, you're just hearing the voiceover. Mm-hmm. It was great that at a certain point they knew the audience knows what's going on. We can break from it, and it'll still make sense.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, that was great.
So yeah, that was a fantastic vehicle. Great way to communicate the character.
Yeah.
Great way to communicate time in Mars, because otherwise it would be a lot of Matt Damon walking around.
Right, exactly.
Which there was a lot of Matt Damon walking around.
There's a lot of Matt Damon walking around. Yeah, that was cool. It's interesting. I was kind of surprised how they structured the film in certain ways, in the sense that the book goes into a lot of detail. Every one of those little events, like the whole thing of him having to make water, that's multiple chapters in the book, because he goes into every detail of breaking down hydrazine, starting to, how to make fire in a habitat on Mars, and collecting the water, and how the water recirculator works to actually pick up the moisture and all this stuff. And they do that in like 5 minutes in the movie. It's very quick. They hit those high points. They hit the need, and they hit how he's going to deal with it, but it's pretty fast. And a lot of the movie really doesn't focus as much on his MacGyver-like techniques. There's a lot of that, but it's really more... It's more focused on the character, and a lot more focused on the effort to get him back in a lot of ways. Whereas in the book, you spend probably the first 100 pages without even going back to Earth.
So what's interesting, you're talking about how they don't spend a lot of time on the MacGyver bit. I having not read the book, I felt like they spent a lot of time on the MacGyver
Really?
bit.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I felt like there was actually a lot of time spent on the mechanism of, here's how I'm going to do this, and now I'm going to grab this from here, and I'm going to connect these things, and I felt like there was actually quite a bit of that. So I wonder if it's the perspective difference of having read the book, knowing that there was 100 pages dedicated to him just trying to figure out how to do this, that may have taken 30 seconds on screen.
And that's why one interesting aspect about this movie that I don't often feel with adaptations, but it's very, very faithful to the book. With the exception of the ending, which we'll talk about in a minute, it's virtually identical. But both the movie and the book stand alone in really interesting ways. Even though they're the exact same story, you could go watch that movie and go home and read the book and have two very different experiences, which is fascinating to me. I think that's great. I think it's
while still hitting the same story plot.
Exactly. Yeah, and part of that comes into the details. If you want to know a lot of how what he does really works, or at least theoretically works, you can go read the book, and it's great. One thing that I was kind of interested in that's a difference from the book is they don't, until the end, they don't focus as much on the true difficulty of a lot of what he's doing, and a lot of how difficult it is, for the basic aspects of his survival. For example, in the movie, until the end, you see him eating and drinking pretty freely, and he's actually taking showers, and he's doing all this various stuff. In the book, he has to collect water and store it in a spacesuit, and is having to drink water out of a spacesuit because he doesn't have enough water. Recycle urine. All this stuff that is in the movie. Some of it kind of felt a little bit glossed over to me. And again, that's from the perspective of having read the book. But some of his struggles in the movie were carried out a lot faster than the book. He would have a problem come up. If I had one problem with the film, it's a problem will come up in one scene, he fixes it in the next, with very little conflict in between. Occasionally he'll blow himself up or blow up the hab or what, but those are more tent poles than conflict in between the scenes. He kind of figures things out pretty quickly, which is stretched out in the book, and is a little bit more. By the time you get to the end of the book, he's been through so much that you are stressed to the max. I didn't feel that quite as much in the movie. It's certainly there, but some of it feels like, well, this guy's the smartest dude on earth. He can just figure this out. It's not these problems aren't really problems because he figures it out in 5 minutes of screen time. That was a little bit odd to me. But it certainly didn't take away overall. That was a minor thing that, again, might be a little bit clouded by having read the book.
Well, and it's one of those things that if you don't know it's supposed to be there, you don't miss it.
Right.
It didn't draw. For me, it didn't draw me out of the film at all, and I didn't feel like he wasn't struggling on Mars.
It's more of, less of a thing of a problem with the movie, and maybe I feel like a slightly missed opportunity to get a little bit more tension, a little bit more, especially in the first half of the film. The second half of the film, very tense. First half of the film feels a little light. But again, different experience. So it's probably unfair to judge the two as one. But
so the movie was very funny.
Yes.
Did you get the Lord of the Rings reference?
Oh, so good.
Okay, explain that.
That was so good. Well, in the movie, the Donald Glover character figures out a way that they can save Mark, but it's going to require it requires if you're listening to this, you've either seen the movie or you don't care. So it actually requires using the Hermes crew to turn back around and go get Mark, which adds hundreds and hundreds of days to their journey and is very, very dangerous. So nobody wants to do it. So they hold a secret meeting to talk about it, and Donald Glover calls it Project Elrond. And everyone's talking about what that means. Meanwhile, Sean Bean, Boromir from The Lord of the Rings, who was in the meeting of the Council of Elrond in Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, is sitting there. And they have this great joke back to, what does this even mean? And he speaks up and goes, well, it's because this was a secret meeting. And I think it was Kristen Wiig goes, I don't even know how you know that. And it was so subtle, but the entire theater lost it.
Yeah, everybody got it.
It was so good.
Yeah.
It was that was a brilliant use of their cast and really cool to play off of themselves.
Yeah.
Not taking it too seriously. I thought it was great.
On the Sean Bean thing, two things. One, spoiler, they don't kill him.
Yeah, that's the first.
I know that's hard.
I kind of thought in the credits and they were going back to him, it just show a grave just to kill Sean Bean again.
Right, but no, they didn't kill him. He survives this film.
Yeah.
But two, kind of the Sean Bean. You were talking earlier about that scene where the Jeff Daniels' character says, this is bigger than one person.
Right.
And Sean Bean's character says, no, it isn't. Which, again, that's a great moment in the film. But at the end of that scene, Jeff Daniels says, when this is all over, I expect your resignation. Now, at that point in the movie, there's about 2 years left.
Yeah.
To the movie. There's about 2 years left until they're going to get Mark home. And so you're thinking, okay, is a lot going to change? And a lot does change.
Right.
Things really go up and they have a successful rescue and all of that. But at the end, he still has to leave NASA.
Yeah, he leaves, he retires,
right,
or quits, or you never really see how he went.
He's forced into retirement.
Yeah.
And so for me, actually, that was a very it was satisfying because the film fulfilled what it said it was going to do.
Right.
I didn't feel like it was glossed over. I didn't feel like we tried to make it a happy ending for everybody. Right. In a lot of ways, it's kind of sad because he was that white knight. He was that guy that he was the audience's side every single time. When what I wanted to happen in the film, Sean Bean was always there for me.
Yeah.
But Sean Bean lost what was important to him because of that. And I thought it was good that they stuck with that.
It's also very realistic in the sense of a group like NASA, being very paramilitary in a lot of ways, where you can make a decision that is ultimately for the good, but due to insubordination or due to, what have you, you're still going to have to pay the price, even for doing things the right way. It felt very grounded.
Right. Because I think in a lot of ways, as an audience, if I would have picked it, it would have been that Jeff Daniels would have had to resign because of, some botched decisions.
Yeah, right.
And that Sean Bean would have taken his job.
Right.
That's the happy ending.
Right.
But that didn't happen. Jeff Daniels kept his job. And honestly, in a lot of ways, he earned it.
Yeah. And
Sean Bean lost his job. In a lot of ways, somewhat undeservedly, but in a lot of ways, he earned that as well from some of the decisions that he made.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really interesting element, and it was also, and we can start kind of talking about the end of the movie a little bit. The book ends with Mark back on the Hermes headed home, and the book just kind of ends with his reflections on the efforts of the world coming together to save him and what that means. The movie brings it back to Earth, and you see what you feel like is probably 5-6 years later. You see Mark teaching at NASA, and then in the credits you see kind of catch up with everybody. It's kind of a what happened to who sort of thing, which was, I thought, really well done because it actually got in some plot points and some information from the book that isn't anywhere else in the movie. You actually see Kate Mara and Sebastian Stan end up together,
right?
Which happens earlier in the book, but it would have been really forced to make it happen that way in the movie.
They centered the entire credit sequence then around the launch of Ares 4.
Right, Ares 5, actually.
Ares 5.
Yeah.
That's right. Which was
because 4 got scrubbed.
Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Is NASA going to have to change things?
Right.
So it starts off with Jeff Daniels up talking about the launch and how they're, some things are different, and then it goes to them inside of launch control as it launches, and the celebration as it gets up, and Kate Mara and her new husband watching the launch with their new baby. I mean, it ties all of these story elements together, and you see where everybody ends up.
And that was actually a good story point, that when it comes back, it's not actually Jeff Daniels talking about the launch, it's Chiwetel Ejiofor.
It is.
Who they previously said no more TV.
Right.
But he's actually on TV being honest, cracking jokes, which is not really the NASA way. And I thought that was a very subtle little thing, but it was a cool detail to kind of bring him back there at the end, and for kind of part of the point of the film of they've used the film very well to push towards information about the actual efforts being made to go to Mars, and to end with making the point of, yes, bad things happen, but at the end we will push on, and we will keep going. That was a beautiful way to end it.
Now, was it implied that Michael Pena was the commander for the new?
Kind of, yeah. I kind of got that. Yeah, they didn't really hit on that too much, but you just kind of see him as the only one who's crazy enough to go back. But they also fulfill another part of the story there, which is where they say that Jessica Chastain tells the crew of Hermes that if we do this, we're probably all fired and court-martialed and done. And we get to see that isn't what happened.
Right.
They ultimately are celebrated as heroes for going back and bringing Mark home.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. One little more of a production thing that I noticed watching the film that irked me, and I don't know if it irked you too, the really bad body doubling for skinny Matt Damon.
Yeah, that was really bad body doubling.
That was one of the weaker parts, and I applaud them for not doing a digital head or doing this or a CG body or something. I thank you for not doing, because that would have really pulled me out. But wow, that was obvious, because in one cut he goes from a skinny little dude to they cut to Matt Damon again, and his arms are huge again. I was kind of surprised at how poorly that was done. It's not quite American Sniper baby bad.
No,
that is the metric by which all great films screwed up moments will be judged. Yep. But
I think that's what lost them an Academy Award. As a side note, I think that baby cost them an Academy Award.
Yeah, it's like somebody went, "Hey, go down to Toys R Us, get us a Cabbage Patch
doll."
Though
I do think that it should have gotten Bradley Cooper an Academy Award, because he was really trying.
He was trying so hard.
Just
moving that little baby arm.
Yeah.
If you don't know what we're talking about, go Google American Sniper Baby and see just one of the weirdest screw ups in the modern history of great film. I don't get it, but that was one of the only things in The Martian where I was like, really? All this amazing production value, and you're doing a weird, crappy body double thing. But it's a small detail for sure.
Well, I don't think they had quite the time or the maybe cast commitment that Tom Hanks was willing to give to Castaway and spend a year, losing the weight.
A year off. Although, interesting thing, I realized bearded Matt Damon looks like Leonardo DiCaprio.
You're right.
Isn't that weird?
Oh my word, I had never noticed that.
They played a trailer for The Revenant before the movie, which I can't wait to do a podcast on that movie because I'm so excited for that. But weird, crazy bearded Leonardo DiCaprio and crazy bearded Matt Damon could be brothers.
Yep.
It's weird. It's really weird.
All right.
Took me by surprise.
Final thought. This is the final thought.
Yeah.
Theaters, IMAX, or wait for it to come home?
Oh, definitely go to theater. Why? This feels like a movie experience. This feels like something you go get with your friends and go see. And I already want to take other people back who haven't seen it, because it's one of those films that I think it was Entertainment Weekly who said you leave wanting to invite people to come see it, and they're right. I mean, you leave going, I can't wait to share this with other people.
Yep.
And to see it on the big screen, I think it needs it. I would be interested to see it in IMAX.
Yeah.
Is it actually playing in IMAX?
It is.
Oh, cool.
It is.
I might go back to see that then.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to say go see it in theaters. This feels like like you said, like an event film. The biggest thing is it's so rare these days to get a film this good that's not part of a franchise. You're never going to see this again.
Right.
You're never going to get to see Matt Damon as Mark Watney on the screen again. Right. So get out, see it in theaters. It's worth it. and do that soon because this one is it's really good, but I'm afraid it might get crowded out here as the schedule gets full down the stretch.
I've been thinking about this a lot. Do you think it gets any Oscar attention?
I think it'll get at least noms for editing. I think it'll get noms for visual effects.
Maybe sound
design.
Yeah.
I think it's going to get your typical those. I don't think it'll see anything for any of the actors because this was an ensemble cast. And
Right.
it's hard to pull. There were so many strong performances. It's hard to pull out one and say this one.
Right.
I'd say it has an outside chance of getting Ridley Scott a nomination for director.
I would be surprised though.
Yeah, I think it's a stretch.
Yeah.
There's so many other good films this year. But I think in the visual categories, this one's I think it could actually win some in the visual categories for sure.
It could get a cinematography nom.
It could.
I could see that. I could see that before the directing.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
Just because of the diverse techniques and things that they used, and using GoPros and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. They blended multiple formats very well.
The Academy's either going to love it or they're going to absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
So.
And I hope they like it, but it doesn't matter. We like it. So.
Yeah. So go see it.
Yeah.
All right. So if you want to catch more of our thoughts on other movies,
this is movie season, by the way.
Right. We're going to be doing this
season.
a lot.
Yeah.
Over the next couple of months because there's a lot of good stuff coming out.
This weekend, got to see Sicario.
So if you want to keep up with us, AmazingStudiosInc.com is our website. You can follow Cliff at Cliff Baumgartner on Twitter and basically every other social media platform.
Yep.
I'm on Instagram at Peter the Director.
Yes.
You can follow us all there. You can see all of our other company links. Until next time, I really hope that you enjoyed this. And Cliff, why don't you take us out?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, until next time, I'm Cliff Baumgartner.
And I'm Peter Scheibner, reminding you to craft a story worth hearing.